We all have routines. I'm Jabron, and with diabetes, mine was finger sticks. Sometimes I skip them because it hurt. The Freestyle Libre 3CGM changed that. It gives me glucose insights without finger sticks. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
Finger sticks are required if your glucose alarms or readings do not match symptoms, or when you see check blood glucose symbol for the first 12 hours. The views expressed should not be used for medical diagnosis or treatment as a substitute for professional medical advice. Individual circumstances may vary. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Now at McDonald's, get a $5 McChicken meal deal or a $6 McDouble meal deal. They come with small fries, a soft drink, and 4-piece McNuggets. We're going to need a bigger tray. Get more value with your meal deal with McValue.
Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
When she said I don't dance now, I make money moves, that was a mission statement for a whole new generation.
Respect, but that's not the Mount Rushmore. Listen, cash rules everything around me. When that line dropped, it changed the whole hustle. The greatest tracks are never finished. They're just debated forever. Introducing the Sprite Living Track List. 50 tracks that shape the culture from 6 decades of hip-hop. Scan the QR code on a Sprite or Sprite Zero Sugar to see the full breakdown. Obey your thirst. Sprite.
This series contains real stories from a poisoning outbreak, told from the perspective of an investigation unfolding in real time as we search for clues and answers. It includes severe illness and death. Some moments may be difficult to hear. The views and opinions expressed on this series represent the people speaking them, and not any organization they are affiliated with. This podcast discusses medical and food safety topics, but it is for education and storytelling only. It is not medical advice and makes no claims about the safety of any food. If you are concerned about a possible poisoning or the safety of any food, contact your local poison center for free personalized medical advice. In the U.S., that number is 1-800-222-1222.
6 people are now dead. Authorities say poisoned Tylenol capsules reached store shelves.
Dozens became ill after drinking coffee investigators believe was deliberately poisoned.
Health officials are tracking a cluster of lead poisonings linked to a popular fruit pouch sold for children. Investigators suggest the contamination may have been intentional.
A train carrying hazardous chemicals derailed overnight, forcing thousands from their homes.
Officials believe a toxic ingredient may be behind illnesses at a restaurant. Investigators are focused on a spice that should never have been in food. Experts say even a tiny amount can be fatal.
Several deaths are now being reviewed.
More than 50 people have reported symptoms. State health officials are now working to find the source.
The company is offering a $100,000 reward for information on who may have added the poison.
Authorities are calling it a poisoning.
A mass poisoning.
Another outbreak.
A poisoning outbreak.
An outbreak. An outbreak.
An outbreak.
A mass poisoning outbreak.
Welcome back to the Morel Dilemma. In our last 6 episodes, we've taken a bit of a winding road, getting to leisurely answer every question we had. But there's still a real outbreak going on in Montana. So let's get back to the team in Bozeman. If you remember where we left off, it was Wednesday. Multiple people were ill, some dead. The restaurant was shut down, and Rachel knew she needed extra help from the CDC.
I think it was really helpful to have CDC support, especially with this outbreak, because we had so many other things going on with the outbreak investigation, the data collection and interviewing individuals who were sick and those who weren't, worrying about messaging with the public and our other health departments, questions from the media. So just to have that support was really great.
Bringing in extra help was incredibly important because there is one question that cannot go unanswered in the early stages. Just exactly how many people have gotten sick? These mushrooms were imported, and they weren't just sent to a Bozeman, Montana restaurant. They were sent to restaurants all over the country. So how do Heather, Rachel, and their team ensure nobody else across the entire nation has become sick? Fortunately, this is exactly the kind of thing the CDC and FDA can help with.
We did a trace back with the FDA in our environmental health partners, where we were able to identify that this product of morel mushroom that we received at the restaurant in Montana had also made it to other restaurants, both across the country and then also specifically in California.
So since most of the businesses that received these morels were in California, FDA worked closely with the California Department of Public Health, and they contacted 12 of the facilities that received the mushrooms. And they got about a 50% response rate. 6 of these businesses responded to the inquiries, and they all reported no illness complaints from people who ate at their restaurants.
All restaurants reported the thorough cooking, sautéing, or otherwise thorough heating of morels before serving.
Traceback investigations are a foundation of public health. Think Jon Snow and the cholera pump. Follow the source and stop the spread. No patrons reported to restaurants that they had had illness from morels, but this raised another question for me.
Do you think it's well known that morels can cause this toxicity? Would people know if they develop symptoms that it was from that?
You're right. My thought is maybe the general public might not know that.
And so some might have been missed.
Yes.
That's why the team went beyond traceback interviews. They sent a nationwide notification through the CDC's Epidemic Information Exchange, or EpiX, alerting health departments across the country to look for similar cases.
We sent out a notification to all health departments across the country, and this is called an EpiX notification.
So EpiX, that's the Epidemic Information Exchange mechanism. It was a multi-state conference call to inform public health nationwide to be on the lookout for any illness that might be related. And fortunately, we did not receive any additional case reports from other states. Now, besides EpiX, we also tried to look for cases in other ways. We worked very closely with America's Poison Centers to look in the National Poison Data System, NPDS, to see if there were any unusual patterns in poison center calls for mushroom ingestion or food poisoning around that same time period. So fortunately, we also did not see any increases in poison center calls.
That's reassuring. For now, it seems that the Bozeman outbreak was an isolated incident. So that's one problem solved for Rachel and Heather. They knew this hadn't spread beyond Montana, but they still had many problems on their hands. For instance, people were sick, some were dying, and they needed to warn the public without knowing exactly what they were warning them about. Was it the morels or something else on the plate? Because if you name the wrong thing, you create panic where there isn't risk. But if you say nothing, you leave space for rumors and misinformation to take over. This is a narrow line to walk in any mass poisoning outbreak. And through all of that, they had to remember, this wasn't just an investigation. There were families living through it in real time, like the Ventura family.
I would say for those officials in, health departments, sheriff's offices, and things like that, before you send out a press release or you answer the media's questions, the one thing I would ask them to think about before they do anything, put yourself in my position or Christopher's position. In events like this, right, your first customer is not the media, it's not the public, it's people like Christopher and I.
I'm sure one of the last things you want to happen when caring for a loved one who experienced a tragedy is to find out details about that tragedy on the news instead of having them directly communicated to you. But finding the cadence of getting accurate information to the public in real time is a lot harder than it sounds. And there was a challenge in this outbreak as well.
We would often have to provide communications messaging for the general public to prevent more people from getting sick.
There were a lot of different communications ongoing on a near constant basis. Heather and myself moved to a daily meeting with CDC. With the FDA teams, we met either weekly or bi-weekly, near constant communication with everybody on our teams. And then we also did a press release once the investigation had been wrapped up and shared this data with the public through that press release. So that was kind of the key thing, just getting the information out there and making sure that the risk had been mitigated to the public prior to the restaurant reopening.
The restaurant reopened on May 25th. almost 5 weeks after it was shut down for the poisoning deaths related to morel mushrooms. And it's still in operation to this day. In fact, my uncle lives in Bozeman and sent me a selfie of him eating at that restaurant just a few weeks ago. You might have noticed I've never mentioned the name of the restaurant because this is about more than just one outbreak. These things happen throughout the entire country, whether a bacteria makes its way into the food supply, or a spice gets switched out with a poison, or a restaurant ignores food safety and preparation. These types of outbreaks will happen every year. And that's why it's important we learn lessons from them. A lot of positive things happened here. The investigation wasn't just fast, shutting down the restaurant within hours of hearing about a death, but it was quite in depth. Just remember Dr. Comstock and Dr. Bassett.
This is about as thorough of an investigation as I can imagine, and they've done a pretty admirable job to make a compelling case.
Sounds very thorough, for sure. They did a very, very more thorough than many could do, and as best as you could adjudicate it sounds like they did.
And the lessons our investigators learned in this outbreak are going to protect the next group that gets poisoned.
So certainly we learned a lot about the importance of relying on that epidemiologic data, especially when you aren't able to identify a pathogen through testing. So the next time that we had a large outbreak locally, we were able to put out a social media message to say, this is an outbreak that is occurring. We want all ill individuals to please fill out this survey, all non-ill individuals to fill out this survey. Those were some great lessons learned and certainly have helped us moving forward and getting that epidemiologic data from the outset, just in case we aren't able to identify a pathogen.
But the fact that there even was an outbreak means there's more work to do.
Obviously, there needs to be a better way of ensuring that the public is protected.
We need better ways to communicate food safety to the public.
You can go to the Gallatin Valley website, the health department's website, and you can see the health and safety statistics of any restaurant in town. But that requires somebody actually think about doing it and taking a lot of actions to go find this information. Whereas cities like Seattle, for example, have posted on front doors of restaurants an 8x10 card, and it's real simple to understand. It's 5 different faces that tells patrons as they're walking in, what's the status of the health and safety of the restaurant that you're about to walk into. So it's real simple, real straightforward, and there's no question as to what you're about to do.
We need more communication with the people who prepare food.
Concerning to me is that this might not be something that all food preparation professionals know. Since this was served in a restaurant, there probably needs to be much more public education, as well as mentioning this in culinary schools and other training programs.
And this outbreak has exposed a much bigger problem. We don't actually have clear guidance on what thoroughly cooking a mushroom means.
I used to say, make sure you cook them. Well, what does really cooking them mean? And what is undercooked? I've noticed there are recipes that call for a cream sauce. You can't boil cream, so you keep it below boiling, and you dump in raw morels. I would be uncomfortable eating something like that.
We had people from health departments and other agencies asking what temperature would be safe for cooking morel mushrooms. And I would think, well, okay, that's a fine academic question to ask, but how do we even find out?
Yeah, we don't even know what toxin to measure to see if it's gone. There's no...
Exactly.
The current guidance from the FDA website says consumers should eat morels and other wild-type mushrooms at their own risk. And while it says that properly preparing and cooking the morel mushroom can reduce the risk of illness, there is no guarantee of safety. I'm starting to think one of the greatest things we learned from this investigation was what we don't actually know. But we at least have a few hard data points we can't refute.
So I guess the take-home point is that these recent reports suggest that there might be a subset of people who can develop a very severe GI illness with a high fatality rate, including effects like GI bleeding and shock that's perhaps distinct from the more usual GI irritation after eating morels that are not thoroughly cooked
beyond that finite knowledge, there's so much more to explore. But we've never before had so many people trying to unearth the answers to these questions.
Our publication, it is only one warning to say there is maybe something with Morel today.
I think this is just scratching the surface in terms of what we're seeing scientifically. What kicked this off was that Morel poisoning case in Montana, that restaurant. That's what set this all off. So we wanted to bioprospect the toxins from Morel species.
We are looking for Morels toxins to help navigate these potential threats. And its entire team coming together across different universities, from University of Nebraska to Montana to Ohio, right? So we all are using our expertise to prove these toxins.
Something is in the initial stages that involves Morels for the FDA guidelines.
So we realized during this whole investigation that the clinical effects associated with morel mushrooms and false morel mushrooms have been incompletely characterized in medical literature and perhaps even incorrectly reported or misunderstood. There might have been some knowledge that had been lost over time that didn't make it into our contemporary English language medical texts, as many older reports of morel and false morel poisoning came from Europe and were published in other languages. So we're currently working on a review of the medical literature. We're going back to case reports published in the mid-1800s in German, and we're systematically combing through them to characterize the clinical presentations. So we're still working on that. We're hoping to publish our findings soon.
You can find that article published in the journal Clinical Toxicology. And it's just one of the many research efforts that have spiraled from this outbreak. So while we wait for the science to catch up, there is one thing we can do right now. Make sure anyone about to eat a morel knows there's more risk here than just a great meal, especially if it's uncooked.
When I started talking about my story about being poisoned, people were shocked. They were shocked. They just didn't realize the truth is that morels are the leading sickener. That is what I've found for me, for IDing mushrooms for poison control. The busiest time should be fall, and it's tied with spring from people eating morels.
Since this outbreak investigation, we have done a lot of different messaging. So DPHHS put out a press release this past spring in 2024. And then Heather and I have also done numerous presentations across the country on this outbreak, really to spread the word about the risks of morel mushrooms on human health.
I really just want to say thank you to you, Ryan, for this podcast. You know, having another outlet to get this information out and to have it on everybody's radar is just really a great thing. We just want to mitigate this from ever happening again. And hopefully, you know, we can avoid these severe outcomes in the future by continuing to share information. So thank you.
I'm really happy to get out any kind of awareness of caution with morels. That's my basic reason for joining in is just getting that awareness. I'm really appreciative that you're doing something on the morel poisoning cases.
So many have asked me why I'd share such a deeply and painful story. Simple. If by sharing the story, I can prevent another family from experiencing the trauma that Christopher and I went through, then it's worth it. I'd like to also thank Ryan and all those who gave of their expertise in making this podcast.
And by you being here, you're helping spread the message too. So thank you. Not just for that, but for listening along while we scratched this medically curious itch. We have a saying in toxicology: there are infinite poisons, and you could write a book about each one. So it's not unusual for me to learn something new every day. But this time, instead of just reading about it in a paper, I got to explore it with you. What started as a question about whether morels could suddenly be fatally poisonous turned into something much bigger. An investigation with a global signal and a story about the people it affected and the people who came together to search for answers. No, we don't have all the answers, but we do have the warrant. undercooked morels may carry more risk than we once believed. And if sharing this story helps even one person become aware of that risk, it's a story worth telling. What they do with that information, well, I guess that's up to them.
At the end, I must say, I don't eat any more mushrooms. I'm really afraid of this.
It's very difficult for me to eat morel now.
I promise it will be a thoroughly cooked morel.
I just tell people to cook all their mushrooms. Now I cook all the water off slowly and then brown them, and they're just so much better. It concentrates the flavor.
I've eaten morels for 50 years. I've never been sick. I cook them in the frying pan until they're nice and browned and caramelized. And being sort of a microbiologist as well, then I give them an extra few minutes on the side.
I think it's almost impossible to overcook mushrooms, to be honest.
I would make sure they're cooked thorough.
But if this story has taught us anything, it's that these signals are easy to miss. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether something you ate might not be safe, a poison center is there. So don't fret, you're not alone. You only need to pick up the phone.
Remember, whether you're a healthcare professional or a lay person, if there's ever a question about an exposure to mushrooms or anything else, life is hard enough to walk alone. That's what poison centers are here for, is to help guide you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
The help is free. They'll know what's best to do. You just call 1-800-222-1222. Because if history is any indicator, this won't be the last outbreak. But with your help, maybe we'll hear about the next one sooner, or maybe even prevent it altogether. Thank you for listening. This has been A Morel Dilemma. If you are finding anything in this series valuable, the best way to support the show is simple. Leave a rating, write a review, and share it with someone who should hear it. This project is completely independent. No funding, no sponsors, no institutions. Just an effort to help people understand how poisoning outbreaks are identified, investigated, and hopefully prevented. If you'd like to support the show more directly, there are 3 things you can do. Head to thepoisonlab.com/support to get access to all episodes early and ad-free, or check out our educational projects like Poisonous Fungus Among Us and the Gotta Pick 'em card game. Links are in the show notes. Either way, thanks for being here and for helping share this story. Because this won't be the last outbreak, but maybe together we can recognize the next one sooner. This show is written and produced by me, Ryan Feldman. Music is from Pixabay, featuring artists Vera Miller, Driver Silver, Lexan Music, and Rocco Garibaldi. Audio production and sound design by Max McClellan, MKM Audio. This show is a production of Clinical Toxicology, LLC.
6 people are now dead.
Investigators are focused on a spice that should never have been in food.
And state health officials are now working with federal agencies to find...
When she said I don't dance now, I make money moves, that was a mission statement for a whole new generation.
Respect, but that's not the Mount Rushmore. Listen, cash rules everything around me. When that line dropped, it changed the whole hustle. The greatest tracks are never finished. They're just debated forever. Introducing the Sprite Living Track List. 50 tracks that shape the culture from 6 decades of hip-hop. Scan the QR code on a Sprite or Sprite Zero Sugar to see the full breakdown. Obey your thirst. Sprite.
Now with McDonald's, wake up to a $4 breakfast meal deal. Wake up to a sausage McMuffin or sausage biscuit, to hash browns, and wake up to a hot coffee. Get your $4 breakfast meal deal.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.